Okay, a moment of truth. As you guys have seen, I have not done any mite checks on the bees this year, and that is because Kasey and I are fully treatment free. Kasey has been treatment free since he's been beekeeping for the last 4 years. I just started being treatment free this year, as I did use some treatments last year. So now the real question is, how are the bees doing in terms of mites? The current genetic of bee that we have right now, at least the Viplodu queens, they have been known to be able to fight off and manage varroa on their own. But some of the other pollination genetics, we don't know because they're brand new to the yard. So I guess today we're going to find out just how they're doing and just how high that mite load is. Kind of nervous. So what I like to use to test for mites is I have this easy mite checker, and if you've never seen it before, you can get it on Amazon, but it has this little mesh basket that goes inside of it. This is what you put the bees in, and you also pour in your alcohol, or you can also pour in, what I like to use is Dawn dish soap. I'll show you that in a second. And you just throw them in there and you shake them up for a little while. I usually like to shake them for about 60 seconds. I let them sit for a couple minutes and then I come back and you will see all of the mites. They will drop down to this bottom part of the jar. Now, I like to use a half a cup so that I can measure the bees this way. It just makes it a little bit easier to scoop them out. And last but not least, this is a jug of water that I mixed in with, I'd say about a teaspoon of Dawn dish soap, and then just shook it up really good. And this is what I like to use. Bruce's Bees had a video last year. He's a YouTuber. He had an amazing video last year about Dawn dish soap versus using rubbing alcohol. And what he ended up finding is that usually it's more accurate when you use Dawn dish soap versus the rubbing alcohol. And I 100% agree with him. I've been using it since last year and I absolutely love everything about it. The results I end up seeing from it. Usually you get another mite or two off of it, and it seems to be a little bit easier to see the mites because when you use rubbing alcohol, sometimes it's a little hard to see because it breaks the bees down and then you have like bee parts all in the mixture too you're trying to sort through, versus the Dawn dish soap doesn't do that. So that's what I like to use. So the big thing with mites and honeybees is you really have to stay on top of them because mites work in a way that if they really start getting a hold of the colony, then it's like that ball that starts rolling down the hill. They start going really fast before they eventually end up collapsing the whole colony and taking over. And we're starting to near that time of year when you really have to start thinking about your mite counts, because in all honesty, you have to start thinking about winter time, which is so crazy to do because it's only June. And that's usually when summer is for us Michiganders up here. So it's weird to be thinking about winter time in June, but that as a beekeeper is when you have to start thinking, okay, what are my mite levels? What do I need to do to get them down? Because in just a month, they're gonna start making their winter bees. So it's really important that those bees are really healthy, that will be feeding those winter bees. And it's important that those winter bees develop healthily as well. I don't even think healthily is a word, but so in the past, I've used multiple different forms of treatment. I've used formic before, I've used oxalic acid. I've only used apiguard once, and I've used apivar as well. Apivar, I'm not a fan of. I have found some resistance. It didn't seem to work whatsoever. And then I've usually mostly used a lot of formic. I like it, but it's one of those things that, again, you have to be on top of the mites. So if you go into your hive and you see a really, really high number of mites, then yes, you should put a treatment in there to get that number down, but you're going to have to treat a lot in order to get it back down. It's something that it's best to be preventive with, but be smart about it so that you're not treating too much either. So that's just something you'll learn as you keep beekeeping and whatnot. But, and then also apiguard, I have noticed that apiguard with a brood break works absolutely wonders. Brood breaks as a whole really work wonders when it comes to that mite load, because the mites, they need that brood in order to reproduce. And if there's no brood present and they all have to come out of the cells and they have to hop on the bees, then they don't have that brood to reproduce. And on top of that, then what ends up happening is when that queen starts laying eggs and that next round of brood begins to develop, all those mites flood the cells. But then the issue is there's too many mites per cell, so there's not enough food to go around for those mites, and they end up starving to death. So brood breaks work really, really well. You can use them pretty much almost with any treatment, and it'll help add a little bit more of effectiveness to that treatment that you're using. And then oxalic acid, that is my favorite thing to use. It's something that you have to use either with no brood present, or you're going to have to use every single 5 days for around like 4 or 5 weeks, or 4 or 5 treatments. And, the reason why I like it so much is because it doesn't have any impact on the bees. It doesn't cut them back at all. It doesn't really seem to affect them in any way. Whereas I've noticed with other treatments, it almost seems to make the bees sick. I find myself being really in tune with my hives, so I can really tell when they're starting to not seem like they're in a good spot. I don't know if you guys understand what I'm talking about, but you can just tell when the bees start to feel kind of sick and not really doing well. You can see it in the brood, you can see it in the way they're acting, the way they're buzzing, the way they're building up. There's so many different factors that really go into that. But then also there's other treatments like, for example, formic acid. When you put that in a hive, it makes the hive really, really hot. That's why there's that temperature range that is important that you do not go under or over. I believe it's 55 degrees to 85 degrees that you are allowed to use it. If you use it and it's close to that 85 degree mark, it will burn your brood because it's an acid, so it already heats up the hive. And on top of that, I've always noticed that it usually stops the queen from laying for a couple weeks. So it pretty much gives you a brood break just by killing the brood and overheating it and whatnot. So if you're trying to treat your bees, but you really need them to keep building up, that's not really something you can use. So that was a lot of information all at once. So I don't use treatments anymore. Kasey has never used treatments. We're completely treatment free, but this is just the experience that I've had over the last couple years using treatments. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask. I can help you out a little bit on what you should use, how you should use it, what works the best, and all of that. So as I've talked about before, Kasey and I are breeding bees that can manage varroa on our own. So that is why I'm wanting to check on them today. I want to see where they're at. I want to see how they're performing, especially these new pollination genetics. Every single one of these pollinator hives has been requeened. So they all have the original pollination genetics as their mother. And then they have mated with all of the local drones in the area. So they're going to get a little bit of both sides. And I want to see if that's going to make a difference, and like I said, how they're performing in terms of mites. So I'm pretty nervous, but I'm also really excited, so let's just get started. Okay, so we're gonna go into my biggest hive over here in the honey yard right now. This is the hive that has been jam-packed full of bees, and they've been doing absolutely great. So I'm really curious, and this one would be a perfect test subject. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go into wherever the brood is, because you're going to want nurse bees. So I'm going to take off this, oh gosh, that's heavy, this top box. Woo! And then I like to use one of, since these have migratory lids on them, I don't really want to use those. I just like to use a regular telescoping cover to put the bees in, and I'll show you what I mean by that. Makes it a lot easier. But then what you're going to do is you're going to look for a brood frame that preferably has larvae on it, because then there will be a lot of nurse bees tending and caring for that brood. I just sent these yesterday, so they're probably going to be a little cranky with me, because they're like, hey, you just dug into us yesterday, like, what do you want? So, and always make sure you don't have, oh, I tore off their honey, oops. Oh, yep, the queen is on this frame, so you don't want to use this frame. Definitely not. I'm going to take this frame out so I can move things around. Yeah, so I'm already seeing that they do uncap cells. And what this is they are smelling mites underneath the cappings. So I don't know if you can see it. But right there, see that like little dot? That's them uncapping that cell because they must smell mites underneath it. So they will then remove it out, and when that happens, it ends up killing the mites and breaking their reproduction cycle. But okay, so not this frame. Okay, this one's got some young bees. We're gonna use this one. Okay, so make sure your container is full first. Can't tell you how many times I have shooken them in there and then realized I didn't even put any fluid in here. You only need to fill it up about halfway. And then some people like to spray their frame with like sugar water or some type of water. But the reason I don't do this is because you're going to want nurse bees, and nurse bees aren't going to fly, but any bees that do fly off the frame are the bees you don't really need to test anyways. So all I do, where's my, there we go. All right, recheck for a queen. And then I just well, that's not going to be enough bees. Gonna have to get some more. Hold on, gotta find another frame. There wasn't enough bees on that one. Okay, I only need a little bit because. Alright. Then just shake it. I like to swirl it around. And like I said, it takes a couple minutes, so I'm just gonna set it to the side. Put these frames back in here. Yeah, they're not happy with me either because I switched their boxes, so they're all like, what the heck? But the reason for that is because she was kind of ignoring that bottom box, so I wanted her to utilize both boxes, so I move things about since she likes to hang out in the second box for some reason. Some queens like to do that, especially new queens, because these queens aren't fully trained yet. We're working on that. Oh God. Oh wow. This can't be right. If this is right, then we're doing really good. So we've got one right there. And that's it. Just one. Which that is absolutely wonderful because a half a cup of bees should generally be around 300 bees. So you don't want your mite load to get over 3%. So taking those numbers and dividing 300 by 1, that's going to be like a 0.03%. I need to do the math on that. It might be kind of lower than that, but that's really low. So we are a-okay with that. As long as it's under 10 mites per wash, then you're going to be under that 3% threshold, and that's what's important. But again, like, That's impressive that there's only one mite in this wash. Let's see some other ones. So I generally like to usually leave this and let it sit for a little bit, just in case any other ones drop while I'm working on the next one. And then I usually pour it out just before I'm about to do my next wash. So I'm just gonna set that to the side for now. I already know, because I was in this one yesterday, that I'm probably gonna have to go in the bottom box for this one. So I'm just gonna go straight down there. Nice, beautiful brood pattern right there. See, that's the thing that I've noticed about Vipilidu's daughters, and that's also what blows my mind, is that most times when you have a really good genetic of bee and you keep requeening, sometimes you're going to have duds, and some of those queens are going to be really sucky. But every single queen, every single daughter we've had from Vipilidu is all uniformly the same in terms of they all lay the same, they all act the same, they all know how to work the whole hive. They don't just stay on a couple frames and only stay to the side of the hive. They utilize every single frame in that hive that they can possibly get to. And that's what I really like, because nobody likes putting a queen in a hive and then her being kind of like mediocre. Then you're like, should I get rid of her? Because you really need a good queen in that hive. So yeah, very, very happy with her. All right, make sure we got out. Oh, I did not mean to do that. You guys did not see that. All right, dun dun dun. What do we got here? So we have one over here in the corner. And once again, we only have one. Wow, that's impressive. That's really impressive, actually. All right, let's pick another hive and test it. See where we're at. I'm probably only gonna do a couple more, and then I'm just gonna use that as a general basis for this yard. Which, in all honesty, I probably should test every single hive, just because if there's one hive that has a really high mite load, they said it could create what's called a mite bomb, and pretty much they'll infest all of the other hives, which you definitely don't want. So, but for the sake of the video, I'm not going to bore you guys with testing every single one of these. Okay, let's go with this other big one over here. I'm purposely picking big ones. Oh, why is the lid off on this? I'm purposely picking big ones because they are going to have the most amount of bees, the most amount of brood, which also means the most amount of mites. Okay. So this top box is a honey box, which, holy smokes, they are doing great. Woo! That's awesome. Good luck to me lifting this, though. Oh yeah, good luck to me lifting this. This is why I work out, because otherwise I cannot do my job. Okay, let's see if they even have any brood up here. Looks like they might. She's laying really well, wow. That's what I like to see. Alright, still only one mite. Pour them out, make sure there's no straggling mites in there. Fill it up halfway. show you guys so you guys can watch. Sometimes it's cool to watch them all go in there. Okay. Here's my half a cup. Always double, triple check for a queen. You don't want to wash your queen. That would not be fun. Make sure they're coated really nicely. Okay, there's one mite right there in the middle. Wow, really? Only one mite again? Oh, two mites. Two mites. There's one right there. Okay. That's still really good though. That's still amazing. Now, it could be possible that there are mites in the brood right now because there's a lot of capped brood in there. But that is still okay. This means that any mites that are in here, they're being managed and controlled, and we're looking really good. Okay, so back in, I believe it was February, is that when I did that brood break video? I had done a video about brood breaks saying how good they are for really cutting those mites back. And a lot of you asked, okay, I want to do a brood break so I can cut the mites back naturally. How do I do this? And I never really gave you guys a good method to go about this. So I'm going to tell you how you can actually do a brood break in your hive, especially if you're a hobbyist. So what you can do is you can take whatever hive you're wanting to do that brood break on. Take the queen out with a frame or two of bees and brood and put her in a little nuke box and have her just keep laying and have her build up that box. In the meantime, you're then going to be removing the queen from that other hive. That hive is then going to make queen cells, and they're going to raise those queens and they're going to end up requeening their entire colony. During that time,